Hello, everybody, and welcome once again to the UnLearnT podcast. I am your host, Ruth Abigail, aka RA.
What's up, friends? It's your girl, Chiquita.
And this is the podcast that is helping you gain the courage to change your mind so that you can experience more freedom. And it is our first series of the year. Woo!
My Lord, let's go. Let's go.
Yeah, we're excited. We're excited to have you all. Hey, before we jump in, we just want to say one more big thank you for everybody joining our very first Facebook Live, YouTube Live event. And y'all showed up, y'all showed out. You did your thing.
Listen,
it was fun.
All the calls and the text messages afterwards, the messages. Yo, for everybody who was there in that live audience, thank you for hyping up the conversation, okay?
Yes.
Because that was literally one of the best experiences of my life. Like it was an amazing time. Like
it really was.
The way the Lord
Oh boy.
Don't get me stirred up, Saints. I'm gonna stay tame today.
Yeah, please let's do that because y'all really like Quita was about to like fly out of her chair. In several moments during that live, she really was struggling to contain herself, boy.
I told Ruth that when I rewatched it, I was like, I'm just sitting there rocking. like the mothers
not
in the church,
rocking.
Yes, Lord, yes, Lord.
Quita just told me
it was so good.
She just told me that every time, like as I was talking and she wanted to interrupt me because she had something good that came, she had to sip her tea. So if you watch it and you look back, every time she sip her tea, just know she holding something back because I'm talking. She waiting for me to stop.
Had to let her have it, because Ruth was saying some good stuff. She was on it, so.
But I understand you're like, I want to jump in. I just think that's funny. I think that's a very, that's a very
this is
good,
a shared
good tactic.
Experience, though.
Yes, very much so.
It's
very
a shared
much so.
Experience, so we want to make sure the saints are getting both of us.
Amen. So if you remember in the live, we shared that we'll be starting a new series. So this is a series where we really want to dive into what it looks like to unlearn that which was I'll say it like this, that which we learned around our kitchen tables. So, for those of us that, like myself, we would have dinner most days out of the week. And, you taught things like you taught things that are true by your parents. And you see things, you learn things. You also, though, the kitchen table can be expanded beyond an actual kitchen table. You are in environments in which you learn things to be true or not true. And then even more so in our general society, generations experience life differently that say, this is true, this isn't true, this is right, this is wrong, this is what I should expect, this is what I shouldn't expect. So we have these kitchen table experiences on all these levels, right? Personal, communal, and societal. And so what we want to do is unpack things that we have to unlearn based on that mentality, because the reality is everything that we've learned in our families, our communities, and society isn't necessarily relevant or healthy for us in this season of our life. And so we want to unpack that. And today, oh wait, hold on, I gotta remember, and we gotta do better with this, Quita, this year. Remember, if this is of any value to you, all right, you remember to like, comment, share, subscribe, because we want to continue to get to know our community. We want to expand our community, and the only way we do that is if you, I'm looking at you, if you help us to share this podcast with more people. So I'm telling you at the top, share, like, subscribe, download. All right.
Tell a friend to tell a friend. Okay.
You can find it on Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube. All right. We are in all those spaces. So or Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere you listen, it's there. And so we really want you guys to connect and make sure that you do that again, if this is of value to you. And you know what? If it ain't of value to you, don't worry about it. It's cool.
Sure.
No problem.
If it ain't valuable to you, it's valuable to somebody else. Still share, still
Oh
like it.
Lord.
Even if you watched it, you was like, oh, okay, there's a little off today. Like it anyway.
Yeah, like it anyway.
Okay.
Because we don't
Share it anyway.
we're not gonna be on all the time, but you know, we appreciate the grace.
Listen, as long as the Lord is on, okay, and
Yeah,
he
man.
with
And
us.
thank you, Jaquita. So yeah, that is what our series is about. And so we hope you guys tune in for the next several weeks on that. Hey, so here's what's interesting. We just named all the different things so that we are on, but you know what we're not on? We're not on TikTok. And I think
No, nobody is.
I'm just gonna say I think that is okay because seeing a TikTok is very likely to not be here from here on. It is something is changing in our society, and we're gonna talk a little bit about what it looks like today. Like, how do you navigate normal in different seasons of your life?
Mm-hmm.
And what do we have to unlearn about normal in different seasons? And so we bring up TikTok because for a lot of y'all, and I am not one of y'all. I'm not. I've never been a TikToker. I don't have TikTok. I never downloaded TikTok, but I know a lot of people that do. And TikTok has been a very staple norm in your life. And I just want to be the first to say I'm so sorry
Listen,
that you're gonna have to go through this little shift.
listen. The saints are in mourning.
Yeah, I see
Okay.
that.
I saw all of y'all little Instagram posts, and TikTok may be back by the time y'all actually watch this. I don't know. Nobody know what's about to happen with the tickety top. Okay, but the saints are in mourning. Y'all done all posted the little. I have TikTok, and I thank TikTok for those couple of perfumes I was able to buy for the low. Shout out to TikTok for that. Couple of recipes I got from TikTok. Thank you. I was not a big TikToker.
Sure.
Okay, you know, I'm a Facebook and Instagram girly. I really don't know what I'm doing on those other ones. But nevertheless, the saints are in mourning. Okay, and y'all are gonna have to learn what Ruth Abigail told y'all last week. Y'all gonna have to learn how to pivot.
Woo!
Okay. Y'all
Pivot.
gonna have to pivot up out of there.
I'm not
Okay,
really
because
sure what that is, but
it's the truth. Even if TikTok does come back, I don't know why TikTok is the one where society was like, we ain't having it. Okay, we not having this tickety talk stuff. You wanna know why? It's because y'all started doing all them dances. Y'all wanted to get on there and you started doing it at the workplaces,
hey, look,
and you
man.
upset the boomers. You upset the older generation
Man, look.
because y'all was at work doing it.
Real talk though, this is a little like it's a little like this, but we got a parent. I had a team member receive a text from a parent with one of her children doing a TikTok dance at Angel Street, right? Because during break, that's one of the things that they love to do is do TikToks. And she found it, and she didn't so much like the song they were dancing to, which is fair. I didn't either, but it was funny because for this generation, they're like, I mean, it's really not that big of a deal. Like, that's fine. And in comparison to other things that you see, it wasn't. But it also, I agree, wasn't appropriate. And it was just really interesting. Like, you know, that is true. Like there are things in the generation that younger generations, that older ones are like, hey, we don't like this. Shut this down.
You know, TikTok, I also think, became such a staple in how people do things. You
Yeah.
know, how are you going to make money? Oh, I do it through TikTok. Oh, you know, whereas like Instagram and Facebook, which, yes, the millennials bought those in. You can thank us later. Okay. But Instagram and Facebook was like, look at my kids. Huh? Look, we went to the zoo. Y'all see these pictures
That
of
is
us
so
at the zoo?
true.
You know, this is so wonderful at the zoo. But TikTok came in and became an industry, and everybody was like, hold up.
Yep.
Hold up. We need to put some policies and guidelines and procedures around this. So, you know, y'all took TikTok to the next level, and now TikTok she just need a little rest. TikTok is tired, y'all. Y'all done wore TikTok out. TikTok said, give me a moment.
What?
Just give me a minute.
And I think it's interesting because, to your point, TikTok was it did serve something. It served as an important medium in a lot of people's lives and seasons. And I do want to acknowledge that during the pandemic, it was a very like relevant, necessary thing for people to connect in a different way, especially for younger generations. And to connect in a different way, right? Not just connect with personal information like you were saying, just updates on lives, but like information. I mean, so many people tell me, TikTok teaches you so much. Like I learned how to do this on TikTok and all this. And again, I'm not a TikToker. I don't. The only reason I downloaded it one time is because there was a time where I could watch the TikToks that somebody sent me just on the browser, and then they changed to where you had to have the app. And so I like caved and got the app, and then I deleted it the next day because I didn't want it. So
Same.
but like I don't have that experience, but I hear all the time like no, TikTok is not just for fun. Like I actually learn and gain information from it, which it's to be acknowledged. Like, hey, it's useful. It is not just a fly by night tool. It's a real useful thing. But the question is, what happens when um because of no fault of your own and it's out of your control, something happens that changes your norm? Like, what do you do? And what is the proper response, right? Is it to, and I think this is a general question that I do ask, and I think even we asked during the after the pandemic for a lot of different things, work being one of them, right? This is also like, is it, do we push
Do
into,
I need to be up in here
well, yeah, like
or
is it,
not? Yeah.
do we push to, do we keep pushing forward in these new kind of ways that we connect and work, or do we recreate what we used to have?
Wait a minute, because I feel like I have a relevant example.
Come on.
I don't know if I've ever shared this on the podcast, but about 2 years ago, my house flooded. And
Yes, man.
I was gone for Christmas. I was gone for Christmas break, and I came back, and I was in my garage, and I heard water like a river flowing. And I walked in my house, and it was water everywhere, and it was devastating because like the floor, I had carpet then, was soaked to where if you walk through it, you could see the tracks of you walking through the house. And when it came time, they had to like cut out part of my wall, rip up all of the flooring, and like I had like a completely new template. And I remember I was out because I had to go shopping for floors and paint colors and new
Yep.
furniture. Like
Yeah.
everything had to get
That's
replaced.
good.
And I remember I was out and I was like, okay, I just want the same gray flooring that was in the kitchen. Let's just put that all through the house. And I remember I had a friend pull me to the side and she said, you're trying to recreate what was when you are going to have to embrace what God is trying to build for you.
That's good.
And a lot of times we get to points in our lives where we're like, okay, this is what I learned from my parents, or this is what I saw my parents have, and
Yep.
I need to recreate this and put those same gray floors in this new structure. And the Lord is saying, take a step back because I'm trying to do something new, and you're going to have to find a new normal. And
Yeah.
that's not always easy to do because we want
Right.
to build off of the template and not off of God's plan.
I am reminded of the uh new wine, old wineskins reference. Amen.
I
In
preached on
scripture.
that one time. It was
Come,
good.
yes, you sure did.
It was good.
But just the, like, you know, the reality is, when we try to recreate what was to put in something new, the thing that um they won't last very long together. They're not
Mm.
going to last very long.
Just a minute. Are you saying that the old and the new won't coexist very long together? Is that what you just said?
I think that's what I said. Yes, is that what
Okay,
I
and it
said?
was good. And it was good.
Amen.
Now,
Amen. 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 Amen.
I
Amen.
wanted that you
Amen.
did it. Yeah,
Thank
yeah,
you.
yeah,
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. 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 No. 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 They don't. Yeah. It doesn't. It doesn't. It doesn't last very long, especially when when you're fighting up against each other, because often that's the tension, right? Is this is what is, but this is what I want, and I'm gonna basically force these two things to work,
Mm-hmm.
and oftentimes that is not so. The beautiful thing, so let's take work for example, because I think the workplace has been a real source of tension in this conversation. Like, what do we, even for me, right? I mean, I struggle with doing, I do work with young people, at teenagers, and so the way that we connect to teenagers, like I was trained in a
Mhm.
different way, right? When I was trained to go in to schools and connect with kids directly in schools, kind of be at the school for a long time, really kind of like use a lot of my time in the schools, fluctuating, making informal connections and connecting with young people in that way. And that is still a way to do it. However, when you look at the pandemic and you look at the way a lot of schools are operating now, it is not nearly as easy to be that flexible inside of schools, right? And
No.
so the way I even have to train my team as to how to make connections with young people now, I have to be willing to not force the way I was trained onto them because it's what I understand the most and it's what I know worked when it worked. But I think one of the things about um existing in a new normal is understanding that anything new you're going to have to be open to learn. So even if you are leading, if something is new, the first thing you have to do as a leader is learn. You've got to do learning before you can then help the people behind you or around you to embrace something. So that means you're no longer in a posture of directing and teaching. You're in a posture of student because I don't know. And so you have to humble yourself to a place where you say, okay, I don't have an answer to this question. The best I have is an answer that is old, and that's not good enough. So
Mhm.
let's pause, let's learn together, and then let's form a new way. And that
Ooh,
could be
wait a minute.
really tough, right? Because
Yeah.
you're fighting against the old.
But I think that that's so key because, I think a huge part of our podcast, and the reach of it is to help like one generation of leaders understand how to impart and build and instruct and guide the next generation of leaders. And I oftentimes find myself like really studying them and being like, y'all are different.
Mm.
Like, and I'm not
Mhm.
even talking about like me as a millennial to like the people who are children right now. I'm talking about me as an older millennial to some of the younger millennials.
Yeah.
I'm talking about me as a millennial talking to people who are in like the Gen Z era. Like, and that's early 20s now, y'all. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like they not, children. They are
Yeah.
young adults for real. And I remember I had a conversation because when I went through school, when I was in college, the college, right, everything was about together. We did study groups, we went and did things together. If we went out
Mm.
somewhere, it was together. If I'm in a class, I'm trying to connect with other people because everything was about community.
Yeah.
Whereas I have often found myself trying to create community with a younger generation that does not embrace it.
Yeah.
And it's and telling them, and I'd be like, because like I'm in school right now, and most of the people I'm in school with are my friends. I have a good bit
Mhm.
of friends in my program, and I'm like, hey y'all want to study together? Y'all want to? And they're like,
Huh?
not really. And I'm like, yo, what happened to study groups around here? Like, people don't do that no more. And so I had to readjust my framework of how I engage them. And it requires giving them a lot of independence, but being a soft place for them to land when things don't go as they expected it to. Because I'm the one with the experience, but they're the one with the proper perspective about what the people they're serving needs,
Yeah.
right? So like they're the ones who are actually doing the work, and
Right.
I'm the one that has to support them and give them the proper framework. And so it's going to require more give on the part of the older generations than I think sometimes we're prepared to give. And I think that this is applicable also in parenting because
Yeah.
I think we try to parent children how we were parented. We be
Absolutely.
like, hey, what's wrong with this? I grew up on the spare the rod, spoiled
Yeah.
child.
Right.
I grew up on the what I say goes. I grew up on
Yeah.
don't ask me no questions, just do what I say. I grew up on, but you haven't. The only way you can redefine what's normal is if you take a step back and really deal with what needs to be dismantled in you. What
Yes.
did that do in you? And I'm not sitting here. I'm not a huge proponent for gentle parenting. I want y'all to do what works for your household. I want y'all also to be balanced. Okay. Okay.
Amen.
But you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not a proponent for one or the other, but I am a proponent for stepping back and critically thinking, okay, you're trying to use the same methods and the same attitude and the same things that you were under, but you struggled with some of that stuff.
Yeah.
And it had a deeper impact on you than you're even recognizing for yourself. Why won't you take a step back and do what's necessary for you to heal and have understanding so you can give that to your child?
So Quita, what about normal feels is safe and comfortable for you? Why is normal safe and comfortable?
Normal is safe and comfort because I think normal has established a pattern,
Mm,
right? When we talk about normal, we say, okay, I can predict that A plus B is going to get me to C because this is the pattern that I have established that is now normal in my life.
right.
And I want to keep that normal A plus B equals C because then it requires less from me.
Right.
I don't have to change. I don't have to shift. I don't have to become something new in order to get something new. I can just keep myself in the same cycle, doing these same things and getting exactly what I expect.
Mm,
And so normal is safe.
yeah.
Normal a lot of times feels because it's predictable. It's
Yeah.
predictable and you have already seen the evidence of
That's
what
yeah.
is normal in your life.
That's
You
correct.
have not yet seen the evidence of doing something new, right?
Yeah.
And so even though sometimes the results that you got from doing A plus B equals C, even though sometimes those were not the results that you really wanted, and that's not like the hope that you really have for your life, sometimes we stay in it just because, well, at least I know what I'm going to get. Right? Sometimes we stay in those relationships because at least I know. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
That's
At least I know what I'm gonna get.
that's real.
Right? And a lot of times we don't want because you getting something different is not dependent on somebody else bringing something different to your life. It's depending on you deciding to change and you deciding to break the norm in order to get something better.
So y'all know look, y'all know us well enough to know we have a plan. Today we have a plan, by the way. We
We
actually have a
do.
plan. We have notes and everything. But what I'm about to do is I'm about to go
I
left a
already
little
knew
bit.
we wasn't gonna really get to these notes like that. So go ahead and do what you
So
want to do.
based on everything you just said, because just sparked in me, can we talk a little bit about um the children of Israel? I know. I'm going a little Bible, which is not always the norm for this podcast.
My
But
Lord.
I think this is an excellent illustration of what it looks like to fight against what's new and want to go back to what you
Mm,
know, right? Um is the when they ask a question, when the complaining, we don't have, where's our food, why we got to keep eating this same stuff, we in the wilderness, right? um we were doing better in Egypt. Now for those who are not, thank you, bring the hard copy, get us to the hard copy,
I'm already
Jaquita, get us to the
I'm
hard
already
copy. But let me just,
I'm
just for those of you that are not familiar with the story, um the children of Israel were in bondage in Egypt for 400 years. Moses comes, and through a series of events, they are delivered from Egypt. Okay. They then escape Egypt, cross over a sea. So they're completely separated from Egypt and their old life. But they walk and they get into a situation where they're in the wilderness. They're in between bondage and freedom. They haven't
Mhm.
reached freedom, but they're no longer slaves in bondage. They're in that in between stage, and they're getting tired. And they're tired of what they don't, they're tired of living in the middle. And so, because to your point, because I don't know what freedom looks like, I'd rather go back to what I know, even if it means I'm going to be enslaved. right?
I'm sorry because I'm right there. We actually talked about this in church
Look
today.
at
So
God.
you better pull a word. You better pull it out the atmosphere is what you better do. Ooh! Y'all, I just want to take a moment and for those of you who have been, supporters for a while, me and Ruth Abigail's relationship and you know how different we are.
Very much
And
so.
in this moment right now, I'm just so proud because I see the impact of
Okay.
my
All
love
right.
and support of her. I see that coming to fruition right before my very eyes. And
Don't
it's so beautiful to
don't
see.
ruin it.
Y'all
Don't
give
ruin it.
y'all somewhere in the chat. Y'all just tell Ruthie proud of her.
Don't ruin it.
Everybody, she out here. She got a word on the inside of her. But anyways, uh, you know, so we were talking about Numbers 13 in church
Mhm.
today,
Mhm.
and it's
Mhm.
the moment where, again, if you're familiar with the story, they finally do get to the point where they're close to the promised land, right? They left Egypt, which was a place of bondage. They've been in the wilderness, which is like kind of that in between place, but it's not a fun place to be, but it is a place where we're having to trust God every day,
That's
and
right.
God is trying to rework their normal out of bondage because you were in bondage. We have to redefine what normal is for you,
That's
and I
correct.
need to do it before you get over there.
That's right.
Right? So if anybody feels like they're in an
Wow. That's
in-between
good.
place, you are just in a place where God is trying to redefine what you feel is normal because the promise is bigger than the place of bondage. The promise is bigger, it's bigger than the persecution.
And
It's
if
bigger.
that's I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Keep going.
No, it's all right. We're hyped right now. So
Well, I mean, I just wanted to say, like, and if you're not, if you don't, if your normal doesn't change before you get to your freer place, you will bring your bondage into your freedom
and
and
that's
recreate it.
Yeah, 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 yeah. That's exactly but Ruth, that's exactly what happened
That's right.
because they sent 12 spies into the land, right? One from each tribe. There's 12 tribes of Israel. They sent 12 spies into the land, right? And they went over there and they saw the fruit and the milk and the honey. God promised, I'm going to bring you to a land that's flowing with milk and honey, right? And he told them everything that was going to be over there. They went over there and saw it. They even brought some of it back. They brought it back. They said, hey, y'all, the grapes are as big as our heads, right? It is indeed a land that is flowing with milk and honey. So what they did, they came back and they said, the promise is indeed there, right? But 10 of the spies said to the people, yes, the promise is there, but there's giants in the land.
Mm.
You got the Amalekites up there. You got the Canaanites. You got this. You got that. We got people on the top, on the bottom, all the side, and they're stronger than us. And so basically they said, look here, guys, here's what we could have, but because there's giants in the land, we're not going to have it. And there was only one man who stood up, Caleb, and he said, Caleb stilled the people before Moses and said, let us go up at once and possess it, for we are well able to overcome it. The question is, what did you learn in the wilderness that prepared you to go and possess it? Right? Because it's a mindset shift. The
Yeah.
promise is there. The thing that God said you would have, it's there. But do you believe that you're well able to
Mm.
overcome the threat that is there? Or are you standing back saying, I'm not able, God has things, but maybe it's not for me because I'm not strong enough, I'm not good enough, I'm not wise enough, I'm not smart enough to get it, because they actually had it in their hands, right? And so we do have to get to a point where we are allowing God to rework what is normal for you, because
Yeah.
they were still used to being in bondage.
Man, and I think that is we're used to being. Can we just say, just have be honest here, and you know what the details of this are, but for so many of us, because we come from imperfect people and come from imperfect homes and environments and communities, for so many of us, bondage has been a part of our normal for a long time. Whether that is bondage in your relationships, in your finances, in your own mindset of your progression of who you can be. But we have lived in this state of, this is how it must be because of where I've come from. This is how it must have to be because of what's around me and all this stuff. At some level, that is probably true for everyone. And we know that statistically, most of the time, right? Statistically, most of the time, um, that which whatever it is you come from is repeated. Statistically, that's true. All right. Um, However, there are always exceptions to the rule. Um, so what does it take to be an exception? What does it take to flip from I'm sorry, y'all. I'm sorry. If you didn't catch it, Quita just sipped her tea. Clearly, something sparked in her spirit, and she was like, pause, and she gonna write it down and come back to it. But what does it take to be the exception? And even more so, what does it take to flip the rule? And so I think
Mhm.
that the one of the things we have to master is unlearning unlearning that whatever is normal for you is permanent. You have to unlearn that normal is permanent. The only thing that is permanent in life is change. The question is, are you going to embrace it, or are you just going to settle in your normal, even if it's toxic and unhealthy?
Listen, okay, that was really, really good. That what does it take to be an exclusion or to be the
Exception.
exception of
Yep.
something? Two things flashed through my mind at the same time. One is I really struggled growing up with this idea, and I know we have a variety of different people that listen to us, okay? But I'm just gonna talk about my experience. I really struggled growing up and in college with this idea of being a great black hope,
Mm.
of being the one like, Quita gonna be the one to change the game. All
Yeah.
right, Quita going to college, and she's gonna go and she's gonna be different, right? And it built up in me this idea that I had to perform and that I had to be a rescuer, right? And that I could not let anybody down, right? And so you have to go back, and when you're thinking about what does it take to be the exception to something, it is one thing to do it, right? Like I was the first person in my family to go to college. I remember at my college graduation, my uncle cried when he saw
Mm.
my degree because he
Mm.
said, I've never seen one of these before. And that
Wow.
wrecked me, right?
Wow.
And I remember thinking, I did it.
Mm.
I did it, guys. All right. I made it. Told me to go to college. I went to college. I graduated. I did it. All right. And then after that, I was like, does that make me the exception?
Mm.
Right? When I changed my major to religion, my mama was like, that's not the exception we were looking for.
Yeah.
Right? We need to put some more. And so like dealing like the exception, being the exceptional one is not about doing the thing. It is about becoming something that your family has never seen before.
Mm.
Becoming someone in character, becoming someone in belief and faith and hope. It's gonna require you to have a different level of exposure and a different level of risk, right? Because if I'm the only one that went to college, that means that I had to take a different level. I had to take a different approach to life than
Yeah.
other people may have, right? I had to go a path that nobody had ever been on before, right? Everything about it set me on a different course. I was watching this little clip from Myron Golden, who Ruth Abigail loves, and I love too. I just need to listen to him more consistently. But I was watching this little small clip from him, and he talks about how anybody that was going to change a generation, God literally took them out of their homes and put them into a home of a king, right?
Hmm.
Joseph got plucked from his
Interesting.
natural environment and got put into the house of a king. Esther, plucked from her natural environment, home of a king. Moses, plucked from his natural environment, home of a king, right? You are going to have to get into a new environment that is going to prepare you for the level of impact and exposure that you are supposed to have, right? And that can bring tension, right? Moses had a lot of tension between him and the Israelites because he didn't grow up with them.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't grow up in the same mindsets and environments that they did, but he was the one called to deliver them. Joseph, tension with his brothers, right? Because he was different. He had something different on him. And when he got plucked out and put into a new place, he was again the one that was called to deliver that group of people. And so you are going to have to, if you want to be the exception, you are not going to be able to do it in the environment that you grew up in, right? You are going to have to break some of those ties to normalcy, to the normalcy that you grew up with, right? One thing that I was thinking about when we were preparing for this podcast is that I grew up thinking that it was normal to struggle. It was normal to struggle financially. It was normal to struggle with even things like weight. It was normal to struggle with being accepted. It was normal to it was just normal to struggle emotionally, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, all of that. Struggle was normal. It really wasn't until, especially in elementary and middle school, it wasn't until I got to high school, right? Because in elementary, you're going to school with people in your neighborhood. So y'all getting off the bus, going to the same place, right? Middle school, community broadens. High school, now we got all these new people. And I was going to my friends' houses and I was like, you got,
y'all ain't struggling.
it was the simple stuff for me. I was like, you got a garage?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so all of a sudden I started getting exposed and started understanding that maybe this is not as normal, or this is not it's a problem when your normal becomes necessary. Right? I thought it was necessary to struggle.
That's good, Quita.
I thought that everybody had to get it from the bottom. You know what I'm saying? I thought
get it out the mud.
Yeah, get it out the mud. Like everybody had to get it out the mud, man, because that's all I was like, yeah, you know what I'm saying? We came up from the slums, not from the slums, but it felt good. I grew up in the country. But nevertheless, whatever your struggle story is, however you have to tell it. And this is not to say I didn't know what was going on in those homes. I didn't know what struggles and things that they were actually going through. I just knew that there was a life bigger than the one I had ever known. Right? I knew that there was more that was available to me. And even now, I have to go, like what I just told you guys about my house. God has to wrestle with me to get me to move towards more. Because I'm like, no, Lord, I got this. This is nice. This is nice. When you don't like this, this is nice. And the Lord's like, I gotta, the scripture everybody quotes when they want to say that God got a lot to give. I got a cattle on 1,000 hills. I got streets of gold. And so what does it mean when you think about being the exception, right? You have to break the need that you have to do the thing that you grew up with.
That's good.
And I had to switch that thing. I had to say, Jaquita, you don't have to expect or accept struggle. You can ask God for victory.
Yeah.
Right. And that's not something we ever did growing up. What we did growing up was saying, hey, we're going to hustle. We're going to work hard. We're going to make a thing happen.
Right.
And then I got into my late 20s and I was like, that ain't enough.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's not when you the exception, because God is going to pull you in closer. And it's a life process to get you to let go, because you don't realize how tightly you are holding on to what you were exposed to.
That's really good. I like what you said. You can't make normal your necessary, and that's really good. And you because I here's the thing with the exception. We glorify exceptions, and on one hand, we should on one hand, but I also think it's very limiting to do that, right? Because the exception is the exception because the rule is because the rule is more prevalent, right? So if the thing that is notable, the thing that is If the free place is an exception, that means bondage is the norm. So what
Mm.
what do you do to flip it, right? And I think the thing, how do you make freedom the norm and bondage the exception? I think the answer lies in those that are the trailblazers as the exceptions to the rule, then beginning to embrace that and normalize
Mhm.
freedom so that other people can catch on, so
Mhm.
that you can be the new environment that somebody finds that's different than them. But if you
Mhm.
don't embrace it, and if you try to if you're put in a position to be an exception in some way,
Mhm.
and you're put in a position to shift the norm of your family, of generationally or whatever, however that
Mhm.
looks for you, and you don't do it, you don't just you're not just stopping you, but you're stopping countless number of people that
Mhm.
you could be that guidance for,
Yeah.
because so many people need a picture of what it looks like outside of their norm, and
Mhm.
we need people brave enough to paint, to redo their picture, to create a new picture so that other
Mhm.
people have something to look at, right?
Listen, yeah, I think it's so important, and I think that's, if anybody is wondering what our heart is for doing this podcast, I think it's exactly that. Like,
Yes.
I think that we realize how much we had to go through in order to get to a level where we felt like we were contributing, where we were in purpose, where we were good leaders.
Yeah.
And I think that this naturally arose when we both took leadership positions and we were like, okay. It's a lot of inner work to become a leader. People who just want leadership positions for the notoriety or for the status or because you really want to be seen or when your heart is to serve and
Yeah.
to help people overcome. My heart is honestly, and I tell all the young people I work with, I want you to get it quicker than I did. Right? I
Yeah.
went through my 20s struggling. It doesn't have to be that way. You can be free in your 20s. You ain't got to wait till
Yeah.
your 30s.
That's it, man.
We can redefine what it means to be in your 20s. We can
Mm.
redefine what it means to be
What's
a young
normal?
adult leader.
That's right.
We
That's
can
correct.
redefine that, but that doesn't happen unless people, the older millennials, the middle adults, unless we look back and we go back with a heart of service to those generations and not a heart of judgment.
That's
Right?
right.
I used to hear so much people being so upset because they're like, oh, this new generation don't want to work. And this new generation, all they're anxious and nervous and all these mental health things, and they don't know how to push through, and they don't have this and they don't have that. And I struggle with that because it's like, one, how do we contribute to them not having what they need to be able to persevere? What atmosphere did we set? Because they weren't setting the atmosphere when they were kids. We were. So
Right.
what atmosphere did we set that made them feel that way? And
Right.
also, when are you really going to just listen to them?
Yeah.
When are you really just going to have a conversation and see how they are envisioning the future of the world? Because I think my greatest fear is that we will have a generation that will shut out the voices of the older generations.
Yeah.
And if we don't, the beauty of our society progressing forward, especially the kingdom of God does not progress forward without people passing down the right things, which is why in the wilderness, right, God was like, if I leave y'all in the wilderness to keep talking all that junk about the giants and how we all gonna die if we go over there, y'all will feed that to the next generation,
Yeah.
and I won't have a generation that will be able to go and possess it.
That's
And
right.
so it is so important to me that we, Ruth Abigail, me, all of the middle adults who listen to this conversation, you have a position, you have a play, you have some sort of impact with people where we can pass down what we've learned so that victory and success and that spirit of freedom can be caught earlier. It does not have
Yes.
to be, they don't have to wait as long as we did.
Well, and I love that you said that, and I think that part of the not waiting as long is opening up the door sooner for them. I lead a very young team.
Mhm.
Most of them are below 25. Certainly below 27. I only have one team member who is 30 plus. And I have been challenged. We had a couple of meetings, and I realized I had to catch myself. This was hard. I didn't even realize I was going in this direction. But I'm so glad I I I think I have or I've done my best to embolden my team to speak to me in a way that I need to be spoken to, because and in other words, like, to manage up, if you will. Okay.
Mhm.
Which is a skill that I believe we need to embolden younger leaders and younger people to do. You don't have it all together. You don't know. Just because you're the leader, you're the boss, you're the one who signs the checks, whatever that looks like for you, it doesn't mean you know everything, and it doesn't mean you can't be taught. And so, but also, we don't, like, most younger people are not going to naturally feel like they can speak to you that way. So you have to give them permission on a regular basis to
Mm.
create a culture that says, I want to be managed up. Okay. So
Wow.
we were in a meeting, um and we were talking about our annual spring concert, and we were talking about location. And so I since we've been doing the spring concert, my biggest thing about it was I wanted to be in the neighborhood. I wanted to be our biggest production and the best thing that we do to be the accessible to the people that we are here for and that are closest to us. We could do it anywhere. We could go anywhere, but I was like, especially family of a lot of the young people that will be a part of it. A lot of them may not be able to get transportation as far out or have transportation issues, and I don't want that to be a barrier. So let's make it within the community. And so we were talking about that. And quite frankly, the truth of the matter is, our productions have really kind of exceeded the locations that are within our space. That's just the truth. And so, they, on one hand, they hear me saying we want excellence, high quality. On the other hand, they hear me say, well, we want to do it within the community. And so at some point, um, one of them said, well, I think that we need a better space in order to have that high quality excellence production. And I was like, okay, well, let's find. It's like, I mean, you're really limiting us by giving us a radius, because either we go kind of like the way we've done it in the past, like, church auditoriums or school auditoriums, which is fine. It's not nothing bad, nothing wrong with that. But if we want to step our game up, we're gonna have to have a different facility, or we pay a fortune for something downtown that we can't afford, right? So that's where we are. That's our reality. And so she said, I understand that, we need to be community focused, and we want to give we want to do something meaningful and big for the community that we sit in, and not just always go out and do stuff, because most of our performances are out. Um
Mhm.
and so she said, well, why don't we focus our Christmas caroling, which traditionally has been out of the community? Why don't we focus that in the community and pour our energy into that and do our spring concert at a different location? And my initial reaction was, nah, that ain't what we do. And I had to
Mm.
really take a step back, because that had not been the norm we'd set, right? For how we do it, and how we engage deeply and intentionally the immediate community in which we sit. Our norm for doing that had been the spring concert. But what they were telling me was, we're here, you're giving us this opportunity, you're giving us this responsibility, and we are telling you we need a different location. I, in that moment, have to release my norm, and for me, double, not just my norm, my idea, which is a whole other
Mhm.
thing. Like, I had to release that. It is not the season for your idea. You're outside of that seat. Younger people are in it, and I don't need them to earn their stripes and be here for 2 or 3 years before they make changes, because that's the problem. To your point, the traditional way is you kind of you got to be here so long in order to have a voice, da 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 da
Mhm.
da. But who's going to learn anything faster if you don't give them the opportunity to actually implement stuff faster?
Yeah. Oh.
And so that's the difference, right? So we have to be willing to shift that. And I found, I was like, dang, I never want to be somebody who is, well, that's what that this is what we used to do, or this is what we know, this is what we normally do, or this is our this is the way we do it, right? I know I've always said I never want to be that leader, and in that moment I find myself as being that leader. And so I'm grateful again that the culture has been set to, like, no, like, we gonna keep fighting for this, right? And
Mhm.
they did. And now it's like, okay, cool. The only thing I need is a plan. I'm willing to do it. I need a plan. And that was our compromise. So we had to come to an agreement. I'm willing to make a change if you're willing to give me a plan on how we're gonna do it.
Yeah.
Because there is one piece of this is non-negotiable. The community piece is non-negotiable. However, if there's a different way to get there, I'm open to it. And it came out in a conversation, so based in a culture that's been set to say, I am emboldening you to lead now,
Yeah.
not when I think you're ready, right?
Yeah. I think one of something that is very, very dangerous. Mm, 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 mm. Something that is very, very dangerous is leadership that happens in a vacuum.
Oh gosh.
Like the leadership that says, I went on a retreat by myself.
Oh Lord.
I
Oh God.
created a plan
Ooh.
and a vision for what I believe you all could do. Or even I went with the people who are higher than me and I had a conversation with them. And now I am coming down. I'm walking down, do, 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 and I'm telling you the plan. And I don't want to hear any feedback and I don't want to hear any questions. I want you to do what I say.
Right.
That and I'm gonna say this gently because I believe it, but everybody may not be ready to believe it. But that style of dictator leadership, let me tell you something. In these workplaces with these young adults who
It,
will quit on you in a split
it
second,
is not, boy.
it ain't gonna work.
It ain't
Let me
gonna
tell you something.
work.
Now I used to teach, and I remember I had a class one day, and I had an afternoon class, so like I had students who were either coming from work or they were coming to my class and then they were going to work afterwards. So I had a student. She would come to class in her work uniform every day. One week she was working at Bojangles, so she had a Bojangles uniform on. Next week she come in, she got on a Krispy Kreme uniform. I'm like, yo, what happened at
Hilarious.
Bojangles? She like, them people weren't acting right,
Hilarious.
so I left. Next week, all
Hilarious.
right, she come in with a Bath and Body Works shirt on. I'm like, okay, girl, when did you start working at Bath and Body Works? She's like, girl, Krispy Kreme acted up, so I left. I no lie, this girl had at least 7 jobs within 3 months. Like this
Hilarious.
girl was like, I'm not finna take none of your junk, right? If I walk in the space and y'all not acting right, I'm gonna hop to the next one. And while we might be thinking that like, oh, okay, she can do that on that level, she ain't gonna do it on the next. Yes, they will.
Oh, they absolutely will.
Yes, they will. Get up in there doing that, y'all gonna do as I say, and I don't want to hear no questions or no feedback. This generation be like, girl, what? And I'm gone. I'm gonna go start my own thing. And I think
That's
that
it.
we don't realize that the young people now, they are very, very much emboldened to go do their own thing. They're just
100%.
they're not as equipped. But
Yeah.
they don't even really see the necessity of that.
Nope.
They're like, I don't need to be equipped. I'm gonna go out here and make a
I'll
thing
figure it
happen.
out. That's
It
right.
is much more valuable if we create spaces where again there is this, we're not siloed from them, but there is this communication that's circular, right? Where I can manage you and you can give suggestions and I can come back and give support and you can give feedback and I can institute policy and procedures that help you and support you, right? There needs to be some mutuality here. They are begging for mutuality. And you want to give them this I'm the boss talk, and it ain't gonna work. And who
No.
gonna suffer more? You don't just need team, you need a good team.
Yeah.
You need people who are bought into the ideas and the mission and vision of your company, of your program, of your project, right? You need people who are bought in. And if you think you're gonna be able to just keep replacing people, you're gonna be sadly mistaken. And I think one of my greatest fears that I feel like I'm always trying to work through. I'm like, one day, one of these children that I've impacted are going to write a book. And I want to be in I want to be in the acknowledgments and thank yous. And not I don't
Hilarious.
want to be the
You
chapter
want to
that
be a
said
chapter?
how I overcame a difficult work season.
No, but that's real, man.
Let
I
me
mean,
tell you
cause
something.
they gonna tell it all. Cause they gonna tell it all. And one of the things that I think this is so key, and the norm. So for so many so many of the younger generation, especially probably if you're in school, if you've been in school for the last 5 years, you have lived a lot of your young life in uncertainty, with your normal being shifted over and
Mhm,
over and over again. And here's the upside to that. And what I think we have to begin to nurture that adaptation for change is something that has been built in them that has not been built as strongly in other generations. That
mhm,
if you nurture that with your on your team, not just even in the workplace, but in your family, as in friend groups in different areas, like that is a trait that we need in our lives, because again, the most consistent thing about this life is change, and we have a generation who can lead the charge in how to change well.
mhm,
But if you don't give them that opportunity, if you don't step back and say, you're ready to lead in this now because you already have more experience and your norms being shifted more than I do, even in the last 5 years. So
mhm,
out of your control. There's nothing I could do. I didn't, they said we were gonna have a prom. We didn't have a prom. My graduation was supposed to be in person. Now it's online. I had online school for 2 years. Now I'm back in person. All like, it's just all these different things that you had to adapt to. And I
mhm.
think that's also why they're so comfortable just like, no problem, I'm cool, I'm gone. Because I know how to change.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna just stay in something I don't want to be in. Because my life, my my life um as an adolescent and as a young adult has already been,
Yeah.
I'm in these cycles of change. And so I'm okay with it. And I think it's an asset that we miss when we demand that you do it like how we do it, that you get it how we get it, that you
Mhm.
wait how we wait it. That's not. And so again, we live in a different season of normal. That is no longer normal. Normal is no longer 3 years and an evaluation and then a raise and then a promotion change. That promotion might
Mhm.
come in 6 months. And you have to be open to that. You have to be
Yeah.
open to shifting the culture of what is possible. So I love that you
Yeah.
said that. I think it's so key, man. And like, we have got to be champions of the younger generation in that. Like, we really, really do.
Man. And that really is where my heart is. I want to throw this other point out about normalcy. And when you think about, like what you learned around that kitchen table, or
Yeah,
what you learned about from your home of origin, your family of origin, is that normal came with a set of rules that you learned to guide your life by,
that's good.
right? And your family had rules, right? Some of them were spoken, some of them
Mm,
went unspoken,
yep,
but they are rules that you learn what communication looks like, what leadership looks like, right? You learned that in your home, right?
yeah,
You learned
that's right.
what partnership did or did not look like, right? You learned what speaking your truth,
Yep.
looked like. You learned that from your home, right? And so a lot of those rules, right? When I was just recently in my healing course, right, they talked about those rules. And one of the ones that I
Mm,
think gets
mm,
everybody,
mm,
especially if you come from a certain type of household,
mm.
right, is that like we were taught, like, don't talk about it. Right? Like I
Yeah.
remember, like you pull up to somebody's house, you had a little conversation before you got out of the car. All right, well, go on in our house,
Stay
stay
in
in
our
our
house.
house.
That's right.
All right.
That's
I
it.
don't want to hear you around there
Yep.
talking about, and anybody who works in the elementary school, especially elementary, that business is getting told in them schools because
Yeah.
them kids come and tell all your business, right? But there was a don't talk rule. It was a don't stir the pot rule, right? And there are things that you learn that you are now carrying into your
Yeah.
workplace as a leader, right? So when people start talking, it makes you nervous because it's breaking one of your rules.
That's good.
That is a rule that you have bought into that workplace, and you want everyone to abide by the rules that you learned at your kitchen table.
Wow.
And one, that's not fair. And two, you are putting a lid on what your team is able to do because you are making them abide by rules that honestly kept you bound.
Yeah.
Right? And
That's
so
right.
you have to be intentional about saying, how do I redefine the space so that it is a space that is not bound by the same things that groomed me, but how do I redefine the space so it's a space where I can cultivate what's in other people and bring out of them what needs to come out, and so that we can succeed and overcome as a team. Right. And you have to be careful about that. And that's not to say, and I think one last caveat, and then I think we're probably going to be close to finish. But one last caveat, this is not, none of this conversation is to say that you didn't grow up with really valuable things, that
Yeah.
a lot of good seed wasn't sown into your ground. I could go on and on and on about how good my mama is, okay? Because
Yeah.
she's mom.com. You know, Ruth Abigail can go on and on and on about her parents, right? This is not to say that we did not all grow up having learned a great deal of character and a great deal of virtue and a great deal of just of good life lessons that we now need to impart in the workplace. But if you find that you have gotten to a place where you feel stuck, or you feel like you don't know how to go forward, or you feel like you don't have enough clarity to make good decisions, it is probably because it's time for a new normal.
I think that that is absolutely right. And you know, we've been talking about the workplace, but again, let's just we're talking about every part of your life. Like that is, you know, last few minutes has been about the workplace, but honestly, I believe that your personal life and your professional life cannot really be separated. And so if you learn how to embrace the newness of a new of normality, like a new normal mindset of new normal in your personal space, it will translate into your professional space and make you more valuable to your team.
Yeah.
And so I was just looking this up. So there's a woman who was a giant in education. Her name is Rita Pearson, and she wrote several books, and but she has a talk on her, and it just reminded me of this on YouTube called "My Mama Said." And the whole, and I listened to this years ago. It's been a while, but essentially the premise of it is, how do you handle in school, like when the student comes and it's like, you know, you fights in school. This is her example, right? So Johnny comes up, Johnny and Derek, and they getting into it. And
I
Johnny
already know where
comes,
this is going.
he's you know, don't touch me, you getting into it, and Derek punches him, and Johnny punches him back, starts going off on Derek. Boom, 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 boom. Teacher comes, say, John, you know you're not supposed to. But my mama said, right? My mama said, right? And it's like, how do you help shift that? But my mama said this. But my mama said this. My mama said, if somebody touched me, I'm supposed to hit them. Right? My daddy said, it's me. Ty and I we've recently had this conversation because there's a little bully, there's a little potential bully, right?
We ride
And
it on.
you know, and it's like, hey man, defend yourself. But to your point, environments, right? So at school, it's like, okay, so am I supposed to, what? So you telling me I can't do this at school, but my mama said I can, but you telling me I can't, and I don't really know what to do with that, right? And so I think that again, the practice of understanding how you adapt to norms in different environments and different seasons, it is so important to be able to do that, because you won't be able to define normal everywhere you go for you. to your point,
Mhm.
what you said, Quita, right? Like,
Mhm.
I'm coming in with this idea and I'm trying to impose it on you. Well, you don't always have the option to do that.
Mhm.
So now the question is, well, am I just going to opt out and be like, forget it? Like, I don't want to be here. Or are you going to learn how to adapt to a new normal and not be um stuck, or that's not the word I'm looking for though, so attached to what it is that you grew up with, that what you have defined truth as, what your experience has taught you, what your parents have taught you, what your community has taught you, and be stubborn and keep yourself stuck because you refuse to accept a new way, right?
Listen,
And this is what we don't want. This is what we don't want.
listen. No, I think there are a lot of things that can keep you stuck. There are a lot of mindsets that if we don't make it our mission to overcome some of the things that you've been holding on to, and you have to be able to identify what is it for you. Is it fear? Is it disbelief? Right? And when we say fear, because fear is everybody says fear.
Yeah,
Everybody has a fear that is tied to something. Are you afraid of people's opinions? Are you afraid of failure? Are you afraid of not having enough? Right? You have to be able to identify that stuff. And I think that what's so important, I always want to preach the good stuff. I always want to be the one that says, you about to get it, it's about to happen. We about to go, 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 go. Right? But sometimes you have to preach the hard stuff. And just because it's hard doesn't mean it's not good.
of
It
course.
may be hard to overcome your fear and overcome some of those things that you have convinced yourself is normal and it's right. Just because it's normal don't make it right. Right? It might be hard to convince yourself against those things, but it's going to be good in the end. And I think we have to do the work. We have to do the hard work so that we can get to the great things.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah,
I know 2025 has started off a little different, right? But I hope that we have encouraged a great sense of hope so that when we get to the things that are hard, you're holding on to enough hope so that you can endure because you know you're going to somewhere that's better. Right? You've already seen, like, the promise is there.
yeah.
They were holding it in their hands, y'all.
Hmm.
Don't let the fact that there are giants in the land keep you from going in and possessing what God already said you can have.
Amen. Thank you. That was good, Quita. And I'm glad you mentioned, because we're going to be talking about some more difficult topics potentially, and I think I hope you guys stay tuned for that, because I think they're important for us to learn how to navigate through, um, with honoring where we came from,
Yeah.
but being brave enough to move forward past it,
Mm,
knowing that freedom is new territory, and you just cannot um be you cannot be so attached to your past and what was, that you're
mhm.
unwilling to embrace what's new and what can be. And that's what freedom looks like for a lot of us, because again, we grew up with broken people and broken places, and that's just for everyone, because we're all
Mhm.
human.
Yeah.
And so the levels of freedom that are available to us won't it can't the level of freedom that are available to us are not going to be achieved by some of the things that a broken place taught us. And so we have to accept that. And so, like, that's what this series is all about. So yeah, I think we're done. Are we done?
Mhm.
We're
I feel
done.
good.
All right.
Well, if y'all didn't hear it in the beginning, all right, we
That's
just
right.
want to reiterate, all
Yep.
right? Tell a friend to tell a friend.
Yep.
Like, share, and subscribe.
That's
If
right.
we said something that really hit with you, we love communicating with y'all about the podcast, about ways it's impacted your life, about things you're gonna do differently. Hit us in the chat, hit us in the DMs. We love to have conversations with you guys and continue to talk and grow and move forward.
Yeah, man. Um all right. So that is it, y'all. We will see y'all next week. And until then, let's keep unlearning together so that we can experience more freedom. Peace.